Hello once again, Monster Hobbies Model Car Garage Mechanics, and welcome back to my Psychedelic 60s group build model kit of the Astro, which is a Bill Cushenbery car based on the 63 Ford Galaxie. So in earlier videos I was showing you this model that was, somebody cut the roof off and made it into convertible, and I also have this spare body here which they painted flat black. Somebody painted flat black. This is the actual body from the kit with the roof still on it. One thing I just noticed recently is this one has the radiator support wall molded in place. And on the one where they cut the roof off, somebody also cut the radiator support wall right out of the model. And I don't know where that part is. It's gone forever. So I'm going to have to fabricate a new panel in here, which I think this is just straight across and rounded off at the edges, but I'm not 100% sure. I think what they wanted to do is get rid of these posts that the pins on the chassis mount onto. I think that was the goal. But I'm kind of debating whether to use the convertible body or use the hardtop and put those filler pieces in for that Carson top that the actual car had. So I'm not sure now. I'm at a bit of a crossroads. But in the meantime, what I think I'll do is build the chassis and the engine and decide on this for a later video. So let's go down to the bench and take a look at these components. Here we have the chassis right out of the box, and as you can see there is quite a bit of flash on these little exhaust pipes right here, as well as off the sides and whatnot. It's not a bad chassis. I like it. It just needs a little bit of work with sandpaper. There are some high raised parts right here in the wheel arches which will need to be cleaned up, and of course to just file this flat here to get rid of the flash to make the wheels fit nice right in those holes. Interesting that this doesn't have holes lower down just to lower it. Yeah. My good friend in England, Pete, he would cut these springs open, but I think for my build I'm not going to bother doing that. I know. But at any rate, should look quite nice. There is quite a bit of good detail in here, and I was looking on the internet, our good old friends on the internet, and there are some cars, you know, of this Galaxie that are up on the hoist, and they are all semi-gloss black underneath, except for the exhaust pipes, which are steel, and the tank is also black, but the straps are steel. So I'm going to paint this like that, just basically as a factory underneath, because I don't think Bill Cushenbery would have painted this all up fancy or anything like that. I think it would just have been custom bodywork on a stock Ford. So I know some people would chrome plate the frame or all that kind of stuff, but I kind of think since he was building this for the Ford show that he would have been under a bit of time constraint, so there wouldn't have been, you know, the opportunity to paint all inside here. However, I could be sadly mistaken. For those that know the car, you would know what they would have done under here, but I can't find any photos of this outside of just the body. So if you have any indication, let me know, but for my build, I'm just going to go with a semi-gloss black, just like factory. The other thing I want to do in this video is build up the engine, and I'm just going to build it as the factory stock one, just to keep that nice smooth flat hood line. And what engine and chassis video couldn't be complete without the actual wheels, so I'm thinking of using these chrome reverse wheels because you don't really see them much anymore. They were a mainstay in the early 60s, late 50s, because there really wasn't very many wheel options outside of other hubcaps from other cars, hubcaps, and you'd attach the knockoffs onto them, or maybe some bullets or something to that effect, or chrome reverse wheels, or even using moon hubcaps and baby moon hubcaps just to dress your wheels up. So I'll go with that really classic look Oh yeah, there was also the Kelsey Hayes wire wheels, but I think I'm just going to stick with chrome reverse because, like I said, you don't see them much anymore. Here I've got the chassis all cleaned up from the seam lines, and I also cleaned up the wheels and installed them here. Now this is just temporary because I'm going to have to paint this, of course, but I thought I'd just show you what those reverse rims look like. And here, let's turn this the right way around. As you can see, they look pretty cool on there, actually. And I've got them correctly on with the cap in the front wheel and none in the back. The tires are the Firestone Supremes, and they are quite nice. The only thing, see how the wheel wobbles? And that is because this hole back here, if I can get these out now, whoops, this hole here that the axles go through, whew, you can see how big that is. And that's why it's slopping around in there. It's almost for the next size up, maybe even a 1/6 or 1/8 rod in there instead of the 1/16 wire. So what I can do is get a little piece of scrap plastic and just drill the correct size hole into it, and then position it where I want it and glue it in place. One for each side, of course. Then up front I'll have to pull this out so I can put the engine in once I build it up and install it. But one thing I wanted to show you is that these wheels, there's a ring in here, as you can see. Getting a lot of glare off there. Anyway, there's a little ring in here, and there's a little bit of a step on the chrome one. And they actually interlock in here pretty nicely, although they don't really have much of a rim on here to hold the tire in place. It does a pretty decent job though, and it looks pretty neat once you get it installed properly. So when you're pushing them together, you can hear a click in here once they lock in, and it turns out pretty nice. Although I sort of enlarged the hole on one of these tires, and it does have a tendency to slip off, but I do have 5 tires, so I'll just try to figure out which one I kind of enlarged, and then I'll use the other tire and replace this one. But overall, I mean, this looks pretty good. Here's a little kind of bonus thing in the middle of this video. I hope you guys enjoy this. I was going through my magazine collection, and I found this Rod & Custom from October 1964. And there's a lot of cool things in here. But in these particular years of Rod & Custom, they had a model section. So I did find something kind of cool about this build in here. So I was flipping through this magazine, and I came across this ad here, and it says 4 new Spotlight Automotive books. And right here is S542 Custom Fords by the editors of Hot Rod, Carcraft, and Rod & Custom magazines. It is literally a showcase of ideas for restyling and customizing Ford bodies from the 1926 models through to the 1963s. Shows close-up pics of the most unique custom jobs ever created for 35 cents. But if you can see this, right there is the Astro. So if anybody has this book, or maybe I can look it up online, I don't know how much photos they would show from this, or if it would just be a listing to buy it, you know what I mean? But maybe there's some missing Astro pictures in this book, or something that tells you how it was built. Now here's another cool little article that I found in the magazine. It's called Off the Model Sketchpad, and this is by Tom Daniels, the man himself. It says, new looks for AMT's F85. Now this came out in 1964, and so did this kit originally. And now we have it once again by round 2. And as you can see, this is pretty cool that I found this magazine. So here it's showing a bubble top that you can put on here from the old 63 T-Bird convertible kit. Unfortunately, that one's lost to time. And you've got a tonneau cover. You've got these really cool looking seats here. And on the side, you're making this side trim out of actual wood. And then these are the bumpers from the 63 Galaxie. And they've cut them off and rounded them here. They're supposed to be jet turbine exhaust tips. And then you've got this cool thing in the back here, which goes up for your rear taillight panel. And then inside, there's no steering wheel, but there is this yoke. So sort of like the Futura, or no, sorry, the Predicta, where you push this forward and the wheels turn right, pull it back and it turns left, or however it worked. And then there's a idea of the finished car in a 3/4 shot with that bubble canopy. So again, a lot of cool stuff from way back in the past. And you can see that front grille there is basically the same as this one. It's just got a bar in the middle here. But again, really cool stuff. This is why it's always fun to get old magazines. Even though this one did get a bit water damaged in here, it's still got a lot of cool ideas. Now here I've got 3 parts trees, and they have a lot of engine parts on them. Now, here is the intake manifold and cylinder heads for the tricarb engine, which is the factory stock one, which is what I'm going to be using. And over here is the one for the blower, and you can see a little square right inside here. That's for the blower to mount on. There I've got my exhaust manifolds. I've also got my tricarbs, my oil pan, my belts and pulleys, as well as a generator on there, or possibly alternator. I think it's more generator though. It is a tube. And then here we have our fan as well. And then we've got the blower belt drives right in here, which we're not going to be using. But overall, I'll clip out the engine parts and then I'll show them. Here we have the white plastic components that make up our engine. We've got our right and left hand side engine block. We also have our intake manifold with the cylinder heads, the little expansion tank there, tricarbs. We've got our exhaust manifolds, our oil pan, our fan belts with the generator on the bottom and the fan itself. Now I also have the chrome parts tree, and there I've got my Thunderbird valve covers. There is this custom oil pan as well, and down here we've got our air cleaner and the blower with the 2-piece scoop. So quite a bit of chrome dress-up parts for that engine, but not too much. So what we will do, what I'm going to do off camera actually, is just clean up this engine. And I'm going to take my sandpaper here, and just to make this nice and flat so that the seam line is not sticking out or anything, just sand this a little bit like that. Make that flat. Now this is a side with the pins on it, locator pins, but I don't know, let's try them out. Do they fit in there? Fits together. fits together pretty nice. Sorry, I picked up that nose cold again. I just had got rid of it and now it's back. It's no fun. So my uncle a long time ago just suggested to sand off those pins, the locator pins. And that's because sometimes when they make these engines, or actually a lot of parts, they might have a slight issue with the mold being a little bit off and the locator pins being out of alignment. So he suggested getting rid of them, like I just did there. And now you've got no interruptions as to how this is going to fit together. You can now maneuver this as you're gluing it, letting the glue dry. Sorry, went out of focus. And lock it into place. So what I'll do is I'll build up this engine block. I was looking this up, and it looks like they were all painted gloss black in '63, our engines. So that's pretty easy to do. And now I know Pete, my friend in England there, he doesn't like these big holes in the side of the engine because all your oil's going to leak out. And where do the pistons go in this little area? But at any rate, I might just leave it in for convenience of the front metal axle going through there. I think if this is all painted black, the engine bay is painted black, and the metal axle is painted black, it might be hard to see that hole. But if the engine was painted like Ford light blue or something, you would see it for sure. So that's what I'll do off camera, just clean this up, glue it together, and let you see what it looks like. Here we have the 2 engine block halves glued together, and as well as I could maneuver this into position, you can see that the engine does not quite line up in the mold. It is a little bit high on the one side here at the bottom, but at the top it's pretty much flush. So the alignment is a bit out. Here you can see this edge is shorter than the other side. It's almost as if this was designed at an angle to get the axle in from one side a little better than the other. And there is quite a bit of a step up into here, as you can see there. It isn't so apparent at the top. The end-to-end looks good here on the transmission, but up front on the timing chain cover, there is a bit of a step in there. And these little steps will actually hold up parts like the oil pan from fitting properly. So just get this on here, the little alignment pins, and there you can see it's got a bit of a gap. Yeah, right there. And if you try to push it up, you end up rocking the bottom of the oil pan because it's not fitting flush. So in order to fix this, we would use our files and maybe even that sandpaper block and just sand the bottom nice and flat, sand the top nice and flat, and then use your hobby knife down here, sand off these edges, file them down, and that sort of thing in order to make this all fit nice and flush. Here we have all the engine parts all nice and cleaned up, except for the block itself, which I still have to sand. But you can see that there is no flash on here. And I will say the hardest one to clean up is the fan, because these blades are just held on by the tiniest little pin prick over onto the center rotor of the fan. So as you're cleaning them, make sure that you have your thumb in behind and you're just cleaning very closely so that you don't stress these little points. Now, I did break off one of the fan blades and had to glue it back on, and it was the most difficult one because it was the one that was molded to the parts tree, and it had a big knob sitting right behind it. So, again, use caution while cleaning this up, but if you do it right, it will look as good as this. We interrupt this video to bring you a correction, an error that I made that I discovered in my Chilton's Auto Repair Manual from 1954 to 1963. I think I made a little mistake in this video earlier, stating that this engine was a 427. In 1963, as you can see here, they had many different engine options: a 6-cylinder 223, a 260 V8, a 289, 352, 390, and the 406, but no 427. But I do believe the 427 was made by boring out the 406. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below, but here they are. Now, I wanted to show a couple of different pictures of the engine while I'm gluing it up and building my model engine, just so you can see some variations here and some interesting color combinations. I've allowed 24 hours for the glue to dry on the engine block halves before sanding it down because I wanted the glue to set and bond this together perfectly before I started to work on it. And I was able to flatten it out, as you can see here, so now our oil pan will fit nice and flush against that engine block with no gaps. Now, another thing that I noticed is that this unit with the intake manifold in the cylinder heads was actually sitting up off of the engine block quite a bit. So in order to fix that, I just took my sandpaper block and ran it in behind the cylinder heads like this, just to widen this angle up a little bit at the bottom. It didn't take too much. And now, as you can see, it fits nice and flush on the engine block. So that now solves the problem. Another thing I was thinking of doing is painting inside here with black paint, and same as on the inside of the oil pan, and that's so that when this is glued together, you won't see any white plastic from any weird angle underneath there. And then the whole engine is going to be painted gloss black anyway, so any black paint you use in here, the overspray will get in somewhat from painting this, or if you're using a brush, of course, but you would be able to get the inside parts that you won't be able to get with that brush once this is together. So that's my suggestion for that oil pan. And the axle hole there is to paint it black before you actually paint the whole entire motor. Here we have our undercarriage and wheel backs painted in semi-gloss black from Trimclad. I've also painted the fan belt and pulleys. The generator and pulleys are painted with Trimclad gloss black from the can, and then I've used the weathered black for the belts. I've also added in some gloss black on the fan here, and then semi-gloss black for the engine block. I was thinking of spraying a clear coat over top, but I don't know. I mean, everything under the hood is black. There's gloss black on that expansion tank as well, and the only parts now that I need to paint are the exhaust manifolds using steel, and I'll also use that same steel for the exhaust pipes and the gas tank. Now you'll notice with the wheel backs that I added on some masking tape to the fronts of them, and that is so that I won't have to scrape the paint off once I glue in the chrome wheel. So I'm saving myself a step just by masking that and getting it ready in advance. Here we have the finished chassis for our 62 Ford Galaxie, the Astro chassis, and you can see that I've got the exhaust pipes and the mufflers painted in Testors steel, as well as the gas tank, and I was careful enough not to paint on the black straps for holding it down. Now I will have to do a little bit of touch-up, but I can do that after this video ends, just to clean it up. Here we've got those chrome reverse wheels on there, and as the Beach Boys said, they sure look pretty. Gonna take my car out to Drag City. Ooh. Anyway, so there it is. Check out the job I did on our Ford 406 cubic inch motor. Again, really looks cool. I painted those valve covers gold, and I used a little Molotow chrome pen just to touch up where the paint got scraped off of the chrome, as well as added in the white paper filter just underneath there. Boy, this thing looks so realistic, you can almost hear it starting up, can't you? Well, I hope you enjoyed that look at the Astro so far. I've pretty much got the engine done as well as the chassis, so maybe next week I'll be looking at building the interior, and eventually I'll get on to the bodywork and the paint. And the little trophies and also those cool accessories that are in the kit should be a lot of fun. So when you subscribe, don't forget to click that notification bell so that every time I make a new video, you're the first one to see it. And if you're looking for some great model kits for sale, check out my website, www.monster-hobbies.ca. We ship around the world. So, until next time, everybody, enjoy the Psychedelic 60s group build, peace out, and until next time, happy model building, and we'll see you in the next video.